Hello and welcome. I'm Darcy Clarke, the originator of the Living in Alignment model and author of the book titled Experience Living in Alignment, a practical guide to personal transformation. In this podcast, I'll be introducing you to the Living in Alignment body of knowledge. I'll begin with a poem that depicts this path of awakening. This longing. Sooner or later, there comes a time in life when we recognize our innermost voice, offering guidance in its promptings. Yet until such time, we listen mostly to those external voices. Often, in desperation, after having exhausted the intellect's resources, as a last resort, we listen to hear this voice. Many times we say that we seek union, but with contingencies. The yes changes to maybe, to I don't know. We find ourselves at a juncture. Perhaps it's death calling at our door, a tragedy, despair, pain, unhappiness, hardship, grief, hopelessness, a yearning. Somehow, call it grace, we come around to hearing our innermost voice, reminding us we're not alone. Love abounds, help is always available, that our life has meaning and purpose. In waking up from our trance, we now know that our life will never be the same. Fear, making its presence known, but with clarity, we see how controlled, how entrapped we become, deprived of ease, spontaneity, and freedom to be. Its force is strong. Doubt, resistance, worry, angst, distress, anxiety, dread are some of its guises. We learn that denying or avoiding this fear is futile, and to numb out or submit to it, we give away our power. Only by facing it does it become transformed. We come to realize fear is of the human self. Abiding serenity is of the soul. The more externally resourced, the more fear we experience. The more internally resourced, the more we trust and surrender. A shift in orientation, aligning the human self with the soul, this longing. I was in my mid-30s and at a crossroads in my life when information contained in what I now call the Living in Alignment model began making an indelible impression upon my mind. On this hot, humid summer day in Boston, I was thinking about an acceptance letter I received from Simmons School of Social Work. I was pleased to be informed that I was accepted into their master's program. It was being pointed out to me that this was the second time I applied and been accepted into the program. The admissions director was also informing me that I had to make a decision. Although I became aware early on that I felt ambivalent about the prospects of entering the master's program at Simmons, I couldn't pinpoint the reason or reasons. This is why I kept avoiding making a decision to enter the program. During the interim period between my first and second admittance letter, I was preoccupied trying to discern the reason or reasons for my ambivalence. The two I came up with were fear of success and or fear of not being able to complete all the paperwork. For the purpose of honoring my integrity, I knew I had to face both these fears. I also didn't want to forfeit the opportunity at Simmons. So without further delay and some reticence, I entered the master's program. During the first year of classes, it became clear to me that the aforementioned fears were unfounded, but my ambivalence remained. I was beside myself. The ambivalence I felt was unsettling, and I had become frustrated with the process. Prior to the first week of classes in my second year, I remember saying to myself, I give up trying to figure this ambivalence out. Soon after, I began a dialogue with God. I prefaced this talk by stating that it was clear I wanted to move forward in my life and that a master's degree in social work was a viable option, considered by many in the field to be the most marketable degree. With determination in my voice, I stated to God, if you don't want me to remain enrolled in this program, you'll have to make it perfectly clear. Otherwise, I shall complete the program. Within a week's time, while listening to a lecture, I received a clear image of a tug of war being waged within my mind. In that moment, I remembered my prayer to God. Intuitively, I knew God was speaking to me. Without hesitation, I got up from my seat, hastily mentioning to baffled classmates seated on either side that I was leaving and would speak to them later about what was happening. I walked out of school, crossed the street, and sat on a park bench. Okay, God, I said, here I am, speak to me. My attention remained fixated on the image of the tug of war being waged between my intellect and my soul. God, I asked, are you speaking to me? Energy surged throughout my body. Okay, God, does this image of a tug of war have to do with things beyond whether or not I complete the master's program at Simmons? Energy surged throughout my body again. Does this have to do with the rest of my life? Yet another surge of energy moved through my body. I pondered this briefly. Then a question posed itself inside my head. What has sustained you more than anything else in your life? Without a doubt, I answered, it's been my spirituality. Within moments, insights began flooding into my mind, and I realized, 1, this image was an answer to my prayer. 2, this higher power is ingenious in how it can capture the attention of the mind. 3, this image of the tug of war represented the internal struggle I had been experiencing during my life. And 4, this internal struggle was often about allowing societal conditioning to override my intuitive sense of what to do and or how to proceed in my life. On that sunny autumn morning, while sitting on a park bench in Boston, my life struggle had become crystal clear. I was in awe of how one image could so accurately and pointedly depict my ambivalence. This event was yet another confirmation of the attributes of higher power. More specifically, this higher power is an intelligent, interactive, ingenious, creative, benevolent, omnipresent, unifying, self-generating system that I now call source energy. It also became clear that the tug-of-war image offered me a choice on how to live. I could either go on making major life decisions from my intellect or make them by following the promptings of my soul. I chose to follow the promptings of my soul. I felt another surge of energy move through my body, while simultaneously experiencing another deep sigh of relief. This event was the most joyous time in my life, for I knew then my life from that moment on would never be the same, because it had taken on a whole new meaning and purpose. I was determined to develop my capacity to tune into and follow the guidance of my soul. Afterwards, I went to the admissions office, thanked the director for her support, and told her I was dropping out of the program. In retrospect, I see that my decision to listen to and follow the promptings from my soul represented a change in my orientation, from being primarily externally resourced to becoming internally resourced. No longer would I be controlled or manipulated by societal expectations and conditioning. I was determined to become my own person and design a life that was in accordance with my inner knowing. It would take another 13 years of experiences for me to develop enough understanding and a skill base to become adept at living a life of being internally resourced. This is no easy task, given that we live in a society that is primarily externally resourced. Although this hasn't been the ultimate pleasure cruise, I wouldn't give up the insights, gifts, and lessons learned on this path of awakening. While on this journey, my connection continues to deepen with my human self, with others, with my experience of a higher power, with all life forms, and with life itself. And this deepening connection continues to be revelatory and transformative. Indeed, as a result of what I now call living in alignment, my experiences of soul realization, soul actualization, and soul fulfillment have become my reality. What is living in alignment? Living in alignment is a term used to describe the state of being or quality of life you'll experience when your human self is living in partnership with your spiritual self. Living in alignment occurs naturally when you allow your soul, a name used to refer to your spiritual self, to lead your life. Instead of allowing societal conditioning to override your inner truth or intuition, you'll learn to listen to and follow the guidance and promptings from your soul. The Living in Alignment model and body of knowledge was specifically created to ensure that you'll be successful in having source energy lead your life. The Living in Alignment model is a self-directed approach that is free from dogma. The Living in Alignment body of knowledge and skill base is intended to streamline, accelerate, and ground your process of self-empowerment and transformation. The main premise of the Living in Alignment model. From the perspective of living in alignment, we are both human and spiritual beings. Not one or the other, but both. If you prefer, spiritual beings is synonymous with energy beings. Many people are living their lives caught up in the extremes. Either there is no higher power, and what we see before our eyes is all there is, or physical reality is unimportant and insignificant, and all of the focus should be on our spirituality. Others are disconnected from, antagonistic and/or indifferent toward their spiritual self. The Living in Alignment approach is designed to develop a healthy and sustainable relationship with both the human and spiritual aspects of who you are. 3 key objectives of the Living in Alignment model: to assist people to develop a personal relationship with source energy, to assist people to live in partnership with source energy, and to assist people to have a conscious experience of this vital relationship. Why living in alignment, and why now? The Living in Alignment body of knowledge is both a response and a solution to the world's ever-increasing madness. This madness is a blatant indicator that we're living our lives being primarily externally resourced. That is, being overly identified with our humanness and the 3-dimensional world, and being out of touch with our spiritual self and universal wisdom, being internally resourced. This madness is our wake-up call to realign our human self with our soul as a means to deepen our connection with source energy and live more consciously. Going within to access your soul's wisdom will shed light on how you can best respond to the world's madness, including your own and its consequences. You'll gain insight on how you are intended to foster unity consciousness in your own life and in the world around you. What does it mean to become internally resourced? Being internally resourced is when you defer to and rely upon source energy, the power that is greater than the resources of your mind, to be your most important point of reference, your go-to resource. Becoming internally resourced is achieved by attuning to your intuition, what feels right, and learning to listen to and follow the guidance and promptings from your soul. The more internally resourced you become, the more self-empowered you become, and the sooner you move into a position of becoming your own authority. Becoming internally resourced is a lifelong practice of deepening your connection with source energy while becoming increasingly aware of the remarkable results and the wondrous unfolding of your life. Comparing two ways of living: being externally resourced versus being internally resourced. The most distinguishing characteristic of people who are primarily externally resourced is that they are overly identified with their human self and the conditioning of the three-dimensional world. From the perspective of living in alignment, people who are primarily externally resourced are functioning at a deficit on account that they often don't recognize the existence of their spiritual self, nor do they defer to or rely upon this power that is greater than the resources of their mind or intellect. It is by developing a personal relationship and partnering with your spiritual self that you gain access to universal wisdom. Gaining access to universal wisdom will illuminate every aspect of your life in ways that facilitate self-empowerment and foster personal transformation. The Living in Alignment approach will assist you to experience the qualitative differences between being primarily externally resourced and being internally resourced. Some of the core concepts of the Living in Alignment model. Source energy is consciousness itself. You have a choice about the kind of relationship you have with source energy. Your soul is a unique aspect of source energy within, while other people and life forms represent source energy manifested around you. Your soul has a calling, and it incarnates to complete that calling. Spiritual guidance is continually being offered. You need only to open up and receive it. You co-create your reality, and you can learn how to do this with increasing awareness. As your mind comes into alignment with your soul, the easier it becomes for your human self to experience the presence of your soul. All experiences and events are intended to benefit you. Some of the benefits of living in alignment. Become your own best friend and ally. Live authentically. Embrace your humanity and the humanity of others. Experience more joy, happiness, and love. Heal from past or present wounding. Manifest more satisfying and nurturing relationships. Move out of a fear and or shame-based reality. Release resentments and truly forgive. What makes the Living in Alignment approach different? The Living in Alignment approach focuses on the human and spiritual aspects of who we are. The Living in Alignment approach is simple in both theory and in practice. The living in alignment approach provides concepts to test out versus doctrine to be adhered to. The living in alignment approach offers benefits that are experienced sooner than later. The living in alignment approach is a comprehensive spiritual path. The living in alignment approach will augment and/or complement other spiritual practices. Topics that are explored in the book titled Experience Living in Alignment, A Practical Guide to Personal Transformation, and in the Living in Alignment study group include living in alignment with your soul, an overview, opening your heart, what is source energy, your essential spirituality, forming healthy relationships, examining your beliefs and cognitions, resolving power and authority issues, developing your awareness, working with universal energy, opening to transformation, learning to trust and surrender, the process of living in alignment. Who would benefit most from living in alignment? People who are transitioning from organized religion to spirituality. People who want a personal relationship with source energy. People who are interested in having source energy inspire and lead their lives. People who want to develop a sustainable spiritual practice. People who have unresolved issues with religion or spirituality. And people who want to apply spiritual principles into their everyday lives. Why the Living in Alignment study group? To receive support and guidance from an LIA facilitator and other participants. To experience a sense of community for people who don't feel completely at home in other religious or spiritual communities. To obtain customized assignments to apply in daily life and provide the opportunity to process in a group setting. Attending group sessions will deepen your understanding, facilitate your subjective experiences of the living in alignment concepts, and assist you to integrate this body of knowledge. I hope this introduction to living in alignment has piqued your interest. And for more information on the Living in Alignment approach, the Living in Alignment study group, and the services I provide, please visit my website at www.darcyclarke.us. Once again, that's www.darcy.clarke.us. Cheers to you, to your life, and to the adventure of living in alignment. Namaste.